Welcome to the Smart Factory Podcast, brought to you by Catalyst Connection, where every day we work to support manufacturers at the intersection of technology, data, and workforce development, turning today's factories into smart connected enterprise, powering the next generation of American manufacturing. This is the Smart Factory Podcast. But first, a word from our sponsors making this show possible.
In manufacturing, unexpected losses don't ask for permission. A single equipment failure, a liability claim, or a workforce gap can stop production. And your bottom line, cold. Henderson Brothers works with manufacturers who know that real protection goes beyond a policy. From property and workers' comp to cyber coverage and employee benefits, they build solutions around your operation, not a one-size-fits-all checklist. Personal, proactive, present. That's Henderson Brothers. Learn more at hendersonbrothers.com. Execution does not stop at your four walls. Even strong operations can fall behind if the supply chain is not keeping pace. KDL Logistics works with manufacturers to close that gap. From freight optimization and carrier management to real-time visibility and cost control, they help keep product moving without disruption. Learn more at kdllogistics.com.
Welcome to Catalyst Connection's Smart Factory Podcast. I'm your host, Petra Mitchell. The steel industry has shaped Western Pennsylvania through cycles of growth and reinvention, and new investment is shifting its trajectory again. Doug Dunworth of SMS Group discusses the impacts of Nippon Steel's investment in U.S. Steel, rising demand for domestic supply chains, and why manufacturers must be ready, while highlighting workforce opportunities, multicultural teams, and evolving technology. Hello, Doug. Welcome to the podcast.
Hi, Petra. Thank you for inviting me.
So, Doug, SMS Group sits right at the center of the global steel ecosystem. But for listeners who may not know the company, how would you describe what SMS does? And specifically, what's happening here in Pittsburgh versus some of your other major locations?
Well, it's kind of easy how to explain. We provide and build, engineer, design, and maintain steel equipment for the steel industry. Compare it a lot to like the auto industry. You know, you have the new car division, and then you have the service school. So you buy new cars from the sales guy, and then you go in and you can take it into and repaired. It's similar to what we do. We have 20 service centers throughout the country, and that's where people can take their steel mill equipment into our organization and have it repaired. And then here in our Pittsburgh office and around the globe, we have our new equipment, which will help design, engineer, and build new equipment for them. And, you know, in this region, it's amazing because there's so much steel history here. It's the reason why we're here in this region. We have the strongest facilities around the world here for service. Like I mentioned a little bit earlier, 20 service centers around the United States, mainly on the east side of the Mississippi. The main reason for that is because most of the steel making capacity is on the east side of the Mississippi. For this region, we employ about 1,000 people here in the United States. More recently, we're probably going to grow up to say 1,500 or 1,600 people over the next few years. It's been amazing what's been going on with the reinvestment back into the steel industry here in the last, say, 8 years. It's been fantastic for us.
Well, that's a great way to describe what your company does, I think, relating it to, buying a car. So thanks for that. That's helpful to me as well. And you just touched on exactly what we wanted to talk about next. And that's, what's happening in the U.S. market, in the U.S. steel industry. And in particular, Doug, there's been a lot of attention, as you know, on the partnership between Nippon Steel and U.S. Steel. And specifically, according to their press release, Nippon Steel and U.S. Steel came to what they call a historic partnership with over $11 billion of new investments and the creation of more than 100,000 jobs. So that's significant for our community and for our region. But from your vantage point, what does that mean for SMS Group and the broader regional supply chain for the steel industry?
Yeah, so, the steel industry basically has two, if you want to say two different groups, you can look at it. We have electric steel making with electric arc furnaces, and we have the integrated, which takes the old style, the blast furnaces and coke plants, and that most people in this region are familiar with. In the last decades, the integrated the integrated business has not been reinvesting back into their facilities in a large amount like they have in the EAF and electric steelmaking sector. One is electric steelmaking sector is much cheaper to get into the business, and it's more, say, environmental friendly in some eyes. Um, the blast furnace making business has really suffered from not reinvesting until recently. And that's where this, we talk about Nippon coming in, who is a particularly blast furnace making company with buying into U.S. Steel is amazing. It is absolutely the best for this country and the best for U.S. Steel, in my opinion, and the best for this Pittsburgh region. It's bringing a lot of antiquated equipment up to new equipment standards, making it more efficient, making it more environmentally friendly. Not that they weren't environmentally friendly before, even though the perception was not. It's not true. Very excited about what they're doing and what they're doing for the people in this region. There was a lot of political stuff that was going on when this was going on through both administrations. But at the end of the day, it benefits everybody here. And how do we see that in the future and how it means to our supply chain more recently with this idea that we need to buy American and that we need to supply from America is huge. And we're seeing that in a lot of our orders. If you can come in with a plan, which in the past, we would have a lot of equipment manufactured overseas, totally. They want it manufactured here in the United States, even if it costs more. So that's been a big shift with the with the steel makers, specifically U.S. Steel. They don't care if it costs more, not too much more, but if it's more, they will buy here versus buying from another country. And sometimes that's challenging because we still don't have the proper manufacturing in this country to make what we need here, but it's coming up to speed. There's more investments here to be able to produce equipment here that we've produced before. It's going to create more jobs. It is already. We see it. I mean, us as an example, we used to have around 300 employees to 400 employees here in North America. Now we have over 1,000. So we already see the increase coming into supply chain. We're buying more and more locally, which in turn feeds our customers. So now it's exciting that it's going to continue on too. It's been continuing on now for over 10 years. I think, in the past, steel industry has seen these big swings of investment, no investment, back to investment, lay off people, hire people. We've been pretty steady now since probably around 2009 of the growth here.
Well, that's really great description of what's going on and what the impact of these investments are, not only for our region, but for our country, like you said. I'd like to hone in a little bit on the local supply chain. Is there anything you can share? Are there specific requirements potential suppliers should be aware of? Is there anything unique or nuanced that a smaller manufacturer, let's say, could get prepared for to take advantage of this growth that you just described?
It's very difficult, but the one thing is development of their people, development of skills, development of welders, machinists, putting money into the development of their people and the training. It's very difficult getting people put money into, preparing our vocational schools in the area to help train people, to hire locally. It's probably the number one, in my opinion, reason or issue we have is having people to put to work to produce what we need. The other side of it is what they can, prepare themselves with is to buy new capital equipment so that they become more efficient. A lot of our machine shops, other shops in the area don't have some of the newer equipment that is more efficient, can produce things quicker and faster. So those investments are needed to be able to buy it, locally as well. So I would say investment into their capital equipment and investment into their people. That's the biggest thing they can do to prepare. And also, I guess is the other part is advertising. Well, become aware of, well, make yourself aware to people, companies like us. Uh, Here next week in Pittsburgh, we have the biggest steel show in the country. It's called AIST Tech, and all of the suppliers are there. It'll be downtown here, was Monday through Wednesday next week. It is amazing, and you'll see the number of suppliers are sold out. They have 150 suppliers in waiting. They're trying to get in there to be able to, put their booths in, to be able to exhibit to us and to our customers. And it's all about technology. It's all the newest and latest technology in the lead for the steel making. And we have suppliers and people from around the world. That it's an amazing show.
Now, that's fantastic news. So, for listeners that may not know, we are talking about May 2026 for this event, coming right off the draft. So, another great opportunity for Pittsburgh to show how great we are to the rest of the world. That's fantastic news that this show is coming here. So, Doug, I want to switch gears just a little bit. I happen to know SMS is a German-owned company, and you mentioned yourself, you're part of an international company. How does being German-owned or an international company, let's say, how does that shape the way you operate in areas like technology, workforce, long-term strategy? What's that relationship like, and how do you benefit from having that type of global perspective?
Yeah, very good question. I've been with SMS now over 25 years. So I've been high, deeply involved with our German colleagues, but also with colleagues from India, China, Russia, Turkey, Ukraine, South Africa, many other regions, Indonesia, more I think about. We have a very diverse organization, very diverse workforce. And, by far, here in the United States, we are the most diverse because we have people from most of those regions in our company working here directly for us. And sometimes they stay for a little while, but then they go back to their country and they go back to where they're from, and they help build this relationship and connection between our countries and the people. Specifically in Germany, which is our headquarters, based out of Düsseldorf, Germany, but now I should say it's much Gladbach, Germany. Um, the experience is amazing. The Germans, in my opinion, are the best machine builders in the world, not only in the steel industry, but also many other industries. If you look in a lot of places, look at the machines people have, they are German made. And they're very precise in their engineering, they're very precise in the way they do things. Sometimes that can be a conflict with other parts of our business, but in this part of equipment, it is the best thing we could ask. Working with our colleagues in Germany helps bring a broader workforce to us. We can handle a lot of things on a regular basis here with our team locally, but we cannot handle these big jobs that come once, maybe every 10 years. There's new facilities that go in what we call a greenfield site, which is a new steel mill built from an empty field, if you want to say. And these type of investments take anywhere from 3 to 10 years to build. And that includes sometimes getting money from bankers and getting money from loans, and then also ordering the equipment, engineering it, installing the equipment, and then getting it up production. It's impossible to man enough people in this country to do these projects when maybe they happen one every 5 years. So we rely on the global workforce to bring in to help support us. But after that is up and running, we can support it locally, which creates more jobs again, more revenue for the region, and more jobs. So there's a short term where we're bringing people in and bringing supporting workforce in, but the long term is better for us here in the region and in the country.
Wow, that's really exciting, and I'm sure it's quite beneficial to your colleagues as well to get that kind of international perspective. Maybe if they don't get the chance to travel and so forth, but they still get that perspective on a kind of daily basis. But I am interested when you have this type of diversity in your workforce, how do you keep everyone aligned? How do you keep everybody moving in the same direction? And are there any practical lessons you could share for distributed organizations?
It's a good question because it's sometimes it can be very difficult. We're talking with people from many countries that speak many languages. We happen to be the most fortunate ones because we speak English, and just about everybody in the world, will speak English. But you have to learn. One of the things is, one, you sometimes it's public, so they can understand you. We tend to speak too quick sometimes, but you have to really read and look and see if they actually understand what you're saying. And I'm sure, a lot of people sit there and shake their head. Yes, I hear what you're saying, because they're afraid to speak up and say, no, I don't understand what you're saying. I don't know what you're saying. Because they don't want you to have to repeat yourself. I know my kids get mad at me because I always say, what? But that talking back and forth and having that communication, one, video has made it so much easier, and, it's made it so much more affordable. Before, we had to do everything in person. So frequent communication, especially with teams. COVID was one of the good things that was one of the good things that brought to us, was the more use of video and the improvement in that technology, and also translation services. Before, you used to have a translator. They sit in a room with you. A meeting takes 6 times as long when we have a translator. Also, sometimes a translator doesn't understand, so they translate things in the wrong way. Having this now on an audio, and there's technology out there, translate as you're speaking in English, it translated into another language automatically in real time. So it's quite interesting. Um, you know, how to spread that around, and how do you keep building upon that, is sometimes it's not so simple. It's, because you're trying to build a whole nother group of people over and over again. And the one thing that's nice, though, about being in the organization, we can put people in these other countries. We can put them on other projects in other places where they can learn, and then they can come back here as well. So, to grow, it's more like a franchise. It's like building a McDonald's one after another. You have to have good processes. You have to have good project managers, and you have to have good management and good leadership. This entrepreneurship attitude is what we're good at in this country, and that's what makes us successful. We have a lot of good entrepreneurial people in our country, in our company, and that's the type of people we look for to be able to continue to expand our operations around the world.
Thank you, Doug. That's really interesting. I hadn't really thought so much about the language barriers when you're dealing with such a distributed organization because, like you said, pretty much everyone speaks English, but the broader you get around the world, that may not be the case. So I can see how that can be a real challenge. And it's great that you've been able to address that successfully, obviously, very successfully. And one of the tools that you mentioned has to do with technology and AI. So I've been asking all my guests, where are you on the AI and advanced technology journey? And what do you think is real today versus being just hype, when it comes to AI implementation and adoption?
Yeah, it's very real, and that's a good question, because you asked that question 10 years ago, there was a lot of hype. I was struggling on seeing real life um, cases of where this was being used. I want to say in the last 3 years, this is where we're taking off. We have real life cases, where we had people in place where we don't have people anymore. You know, it's it saves us from people getting hurt, having people in certain areas that now they don't need to be in that area. We have completely automated a lot of things. Mm. We're using AI and the algorithms that we have written to get better quality, to read the quality, to improve the efficiency. We recently had a case with one of our customers where we're able to improve their production levels by, I have to put it in tons, but let's say we improve their production by 10% per year. And that's huge in this industry. That's related to tens of hundreds of millions of dollars in savings for them. And it's because we're able to put these algorithms in place to look at the steel that they're producing, to automate it, to say, hey, this is wrong, and automatically make adjustments to increase the speed or slow down the speed based on the quality of what's produced. Um, there's newer technology we're getting involved in right now with AI, a more deeper AI to apply to other areas. Now, um, what holds us back a lot is having the right people in the organization, enough people in the organization to, accelerate this. The one idea that we're all working towards is what we call lights out technology, where we will have a steel mill operating with nobody in the mill. And if nobody's in the mill, what does that mean? That means nobody can get hurt. There's just not a person there to get hurt. And it's all run from a pulpit, a control room where they would sit there and they control the whole thing from the computer and cameras. And will we be there? Yeah, I believe so. And someday, could it be 10? Will it be next year? I don't think so, but will it be in 10 years? It's a big possibility to be there. And there's many more cases. We're now applying some of the AI to our accounting principles and back office administration and using that to reduce, our or increase our efficiencies, reduce our costs to make us more competitive out there. As we know, it's everybody, I'm sure in your other podcasts mentions people, hiring people, training people, getting people to work is becoming more and more difficult. So I think AI, we're going to see a lot of that. And, we're actually implementing some things here that I could see in the next year or 2 years. I'll be able to talk more about that, how it's positively affected us.
Yeah, that's great. I like what you said. You acknowledge that in some cases AI has replaced some people, but it's been actually to the benefit of those workers from a safety, job quality perspective. Because earlier you said, yeah, we're going to be hiring hundreds of people to address the growth in the steel industry. So it's not like AI is taking away jobs, it's just changing those jobs and creating more opportunities for people, not less. I don't want to put words in your mouth, but I'm assuming that that is kind of what.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
We need a higher level of people with more education in different areas. And, but, in a lot of cases, those people, we're training these people, and we need people, though, with practical experience that knew that skill before to be able to apply it. They have to have the process knowledge to be able to help us to implement these new technologies in.
Yeah. Yeah, great opportunities for folks. So, you also mentioned earlier you had 25 years in the steel industry. So, Doug, how did you find your way into the steel industry and into SMS Group?
Yeah. So I did, I'm an electrical engineer out of Penn State University. When I left university, I wanted to go and get a job where I could learn all about all the different things in engineering on a hands-on basis. I was less theoretical and more hands-on. So I thought a steel mill would be a good place. I could learn about grease systems, water systems, electrical systems, mechanical. And so I started in a maintenance role in a steel mill in Ohio, which is no longer there now, unfortunately. Uh, but I spent 8 years there in Ohio, and then I spent another 2 years in another mill down in Tennessee. So I spent the first 10 years working for a producer. Then I switched and I came to the service side of the business. And that experience and being hands-on the producer side, knowing our customers, worked for our customers, and now working on this side, it's been really successful to me. Yeah. And the biggest thing I would say that's made me successful is I always push myself to make myself feel uncomfortable. It's most people compare it to when they have to speak. And a lot of people don't like to do public speaking because it makes them very uncomfortable. But the more you do it, the more you start talking, the more comfortable about the subject and topic, the more it's okay. And that's one thing. The other thing that made me, I think successful is I learned early on from some good people. They said everybody is just the same. We all have our own problems. We have, maybe we're married, spouse, a girlfriend we have problems with. We have kids who maybe we have problems with. We have coworkers we have problems with. Y'all are human. Nobody's better than the other person, and we all have the same problems. Some people hide it better than others. And so, you take those things and you continue to work with people and you continue to be an entrepreneur, you try to better, constantly training yourself. I was telling my kids, I took a class 2 years ago in Paris for a year, my age, and people, he said, what are you still going to school for? You can never stop learning. And AI and all the stuff that's going on right now, it's a very good example of that. If you just sit back and accepted what I learned back in 1990 in college, you can't just sit back idle. You have to constantly teach yourself and learn. So I think, leadership skills and entrepreneurial skills have been helpful to me to just keep improving those. But the biggest part is just be a people person, talk to people, go out there and listen, listen more than you talk, and don't be afraid, but push yourself till you're uncomfortable.
Oh, Doug, thank you for that. This has been a great conversation. I really appreciate you joining us. I wanted to share some thoughts on the steel industry for our listeners and our community. And I think you've done a great job of telling us some of the things that are happening there. So thank you again. Thanks for joining us.
All right. Thank you, Petra.
That's all for today's episode of the Smart Factory Podcast. Thanks so much for listening. If you found today's conversation valuable, be sure to subscribe, leave us a review, and share it with someone in your network who's navigating the future of manufacturing. We'll see you next time. And before you go, a final word from our sponsors.
In manufacturing, the margin for error is razor thin. The decisions you make about technology, taxes, and operations don't just affect this quarter. They shape the next decade. Schneider Downs brings the deep industry expertise to turn that complexity into confidence. Big thinking, personal focus. At work for your business. Learn more at schneiderdowns.com/manufacturing.
As a manufacturer, you know energy and operating costs add up fast. But what if a grant could help you modernize your plant and save money? Reducing industrial sector emissions in Pennsylvania, RISE PA offers grants to manufacturers with fewer than 500 employees. Eligible projects can receive up to $500,000 to install more efficient equipment that cuts emissions and lowers utility bills. Modernize your plant, reduce costs, and strengthen PA's manufacturing future. Learn more and see if you qualify at risepa.org.